So WANJIRU WANJIKU fled Ukraine a day after Russia invaded the country and hours after Ivano-Frankivsk airport was bombed. The medical student had to walk for 13 hours before crossing the border into Medica, that's in Poland, where a Good Samaritan took her in and nursed her for 10 days before she flew back home. WANJIRU is now at peace, spoke to our reporter Gatete Njoroge on the war in Ukraine, her escape journey, the racism she endured at the border crossing, and the Kenyan doctor who rescued her.
How was it?
We meet WANJIRU WANJIKU, a fourth-year medical student at Ivano-Frankivsk National Medical University in Ukraine, in the company of her cousin, 2 days after she landed back in the country. She's still traumatized over the events of the last 3 weeks. WANJIRU used to stay at Ivano-Frankivsk city, considered the safest part of Ukraine. The presence of diplomats from the United States and United Kingdom, who had moved in a week before the war, reassured her of her safety. Then Russia invaded Ukraine and her city was not spared. She became a victim of the war and lived to tell her own story of survival.
On 24th of February, which was a Thursday, I woke up at 8 and I woke up to very many missed calls. So I called back to one of my friends and asked what's wrong. Then he said that his building was bombed and it was shaking. That's at 5 a.m. He stays in the eastern part of Ukraine in a city 30 kilometers away from the Russian border.
She asked a friend to move to her city, which was relatively calm and no incidents had been reported. What she did not know was that the city was in distress as supermarkets had run out of stock and there was no access to cash.
I was not feeling well at that time, so I tried to order online. And from the online carts, everything was out of stock, most things. I decided to pass through ATMs. Out of 5 ATMs, none had money, none. And this has never ever happened in Ukraine. Like any time, if you want to, even the lowest amount, you're still gonna get something.
A state of emergency was declared by the Ukrainian government later that evening. Power was switched off and residents were advised to tape their windows in the event of an attack. WANJIRU tells us the city of Ivano-Frankivsk was attacked the following morning.
Someone sends me a video on my phone and I see a missile flying to a building that I know in my city. So I woke up, I went to my kitchen where there's the biggest windows. I see fire at something that looked like our airport. It was actually our airport. And then next thing, echoes of bombs. That was the military camps being bombed in my city.
With the help of a friend, they got a taxi to ferry them to the Poland border, which was around 65 kilometers away.
I carried my bag. It had my laptop, my tab, my documents, and medicine, because I wasn't feeling too well. So I was like, my legs are already in pain, but let's start the journey, and protein bars.
Their journey was short-lived in the outskirts of Lviv city after the taxi driver opted to go back due to traffic congestion. In the company of her 3 friends, WANJIRU decided to walk to the border. A journey they thought would take 2 or 3 hours took 13 hours.
You see children on the road, small like 4-year-old children with their moms pushing a stroller with probably 1 month or 2 month old kids inside. They're crying. Then the mom is like, and I'm like a biscuit. Like I saw a biscuit being broken to bribe the kid. We are almost there. And I'm like, that's a white lie, but the journey is still long. What surprised me, there was a guy in a G-Wagon who just came out of the traffic, akapak kando, kafunga buti yake. He took the smallest bag possible.
WANJIRU was relieved when she got to the border, but to her shock, border guards were separating Africans and Ukrainians at the border.
Ukrainian guard was like, "I bus ikuje as closest to the gate, like the gate is here, then the bus, to separate the black people and the Ukrainians on this side." From that side, we are seeing there's a queue forming of Ukrainian people entering to the border, getting the documents stamped, then a bus picks them, then they go to the other police side to cross. Yes. Do you know, I pushing the gates, now people from my side.
This was not the first time she was experiencing racism in the country, where she had stayed for 4 years.
Even if you enter a bus, they'll look at you like you're a black person. Others will be curious to hold your hair, to ask you your name if they know Kidogo English. But other than that, wanaweza amka wakuachie kitu yote, like a whole side to yourself.
She was eventually allowed to cross after the border guards mistook her for a mother whose baby was crying following a commotion at the border point.
He pulled me, thinking I'm the mom. Then the lady with the child crossed. So kuangalia nyuma, I see the gate being closed and I'm like, I made it.
Wanjiru was given a humanitarian visa before being rescued by a Kenyan doctor, Dr. Sarah Mwangi, who lives and works in Poland. She stayed with the family for 10 days before flying back home.
My feet were swollen. Unafinya kuona, okay, they're still there. But my toes gone. Zimeganda, gone. But I hadn't seen them. Dr. Sarah Mwangi, thank you so much. Na Mungu akubariki na kuongezee. Alinilisha, akanipeleka hospitali, akanunulia kila kitu.
Wanjiru is optimistic that the war will end soon and that she will resume her studies.
I have like 2 more years left to finish. And even now I have 1 month, 3 weeks to complete my semester. But I think we'll do that online. But if things cool down completely, I would go back to Ukraine.
Having friends who lost their loved ones in the war, Wanjiru tells us her perception about the world was changed by the war, which is still ongoing despite spirited talks to have a ceasefire. So far, 1,300 Ukrainian soldiers are among the more than 2,000 people who have been killed during the war, with more than 2.5 million people displaced.